Welcome to the Total Soccer Show Weekend Review. Arsenal lost their first home game of the season, and Matheus Cunha's epic strike was the reason. It was another win for Michael Carrick to savour, and in the title race, it did their neighbours Man City quite a big favour. But that might not have been the best 3-2 result of the round, as Liverpool lost a great game at Bournemouth's ground. Spurs and Palace got results they likely hated, and West Ham saw their survival mode activated. Elsewhere, Kylian Mbappe showed us how a Panenka is done. Barcelona were scoring goals for fun. Juventus, they're doing just fine. And Bayern Munich lost at home. Ach nein! My name's Ryan Bailey. Joining me today, hello Taylor Rockwell.
Hello Ryan Bailey. Which thing was more surprising to you, Manchester United winning or Bayern losing?
Yes.
No way. There's a clear answer to that, right? Surely there
I think it's got to be Bayern losing
Yeah,
the
of
Bavarian
course.
derby at home to Augsburg. I would say yes, Taylor. Surely.
All right.
Surely.
All right. I just wanted to make sure that we got Joe talking about Manchester United bright and early and often throughout this episode. I'm very excited. I know you all are too.
There we go. We can get into England's proud coaching tradition, which begins and ends with Michael Carrick. We'll get there shortly. Hello, Joe Lowry. How are you?
Hey, Ryan, I'm doing great. Taylor waved to me the intro. I waved back. We've got a great camaraderie thing going on this show. I'm so happy to be here, fellas. This is great.
Good. Hope you're watching along on YouTube, dear listener. Link in show notes so you can experience that wave firsthand. Wonderful stuff.
We remain snowed in over here. That is my mother-in-law and my two daughters outside playing in the snow / cleaning the car / waving to me over and over again saying, hi, Dada. And when I don't say hello back, there is anger and tears. So there will be more waving throughout this episode, I suspect.
I'll be ready.
Well, I've got to say, Taylor, a snowstorm is an odd time to choose to clean the car.
Well, you marry a northerner, they're just always scraping the car. Even in 80-degree weather, they're always making sure it's clear of snow, just in case.
Fair enough. Dear listener, we hope you didn't come off too badly from the snowstorm over the weekend. We here in Charlotte haven't done too badly. It's just frozen water everywhere. It's going to be difficult to drive for the next few days. Hello, Graham Ruthven. How are you?
I'm good, Ryan Bailey. I was slightly distracted during your intro by Taylor and Joe's wave, and I'm now working on a theory. Joe's in a different, YouTube viewers will know, Joe's in a different setting today. And so I can't rule out Joe is actually sitting opposite Taylor, and he might actually be cleaning the car in the snowstorm. Oh. Get to it, Joe. Come on.
We can hold hands, Taylor, if you just reach out your hand. No, I'm in Mexico today on a sort of working vacation. Not in Richmond, Virginia, or am I actually in Richmond, Virginia? The world will never know. Well, you guys will know because I was telling the truth, but nobody else will know.
Wonderful stuff. Excellent. Look at us. So many different countries broadcasting from. Yeah. Today, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show is where you're going to get our bonus content, by the way. On there, you'll get bonus episodes, including, but not limited to, Weekend Review Extra. All of the weekend we can't fit in this here episode goes in Weekend Review Extra, so lots of Premier League games that we'll review and much more in that one. We also get you bonus video on that Patreon, and also access to our Discord server where all the cool kids are hanging out. Patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. It's the best way to support us. Please and thanks.
Ryan,
Taylor, are you thinking?
If I may, at a time when Ryan and I were, worried about the snowstorm, worried about it being engulfed in snowdrifts, Joe flees to Mexico. Very Ted Cruz coded of Joe Lowry, is all I'm saying. He is our Joe Cruz.
How did you guys know my middle name? I'm deeply uncomfortable now.
Yeah. Joe just had to flee Casa Grande, Arizona, knowing that the storm was surely going to be pretty impactful in the desert for this weekend.
Is it Joe Ted Cruz Lowry, Ted Cruz all one word, or is it Joe Cruz Lowry?
It's hyphenated, actually, is what it is.
Okay.
It's the middle name. I have a rare middle name hyphenation. It's not common at all, but I have it.
Taylor, before we move into the soccer, I have a quick question for you. Do you have, in Richmond, Virginia, a local celebrity weatherman? Because we have one here who's like the guy who goes by one name. Basically, he's like Madonna now.
Goes by one. He's a mononym now? That's how good he is at the
it's
weather?
Like, what does Brad say about this weather? It's basically the only reference you need when you're looking at meteorological data, apparently. So does Richmond have an equivalent? Is there one guy who's like, he's the source?
Jim Duncan, baby.
Okay.
Jim Duncan. Well, this
of course it is.
Do these people have a gimmick? Do any of them dance? Or
he just explains the weather in very easy to understand sort of ways and cuts through a lot of the BS because we have another weather account here that is very constantly. It was right once with you're gonna get 45 inches of snow, and so everybody follows it, but he's always wrong, or at the very least is oh, my model was slightly off, and instead of 12 inches, we got like a quarter-inch dusting. But next time I'll be right, and Jim Duncan would never.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a difficult job predicting the weather, Taylor, but it's weekends like this where they are heralded for their services to meteorological stuff, and then when it's a bit of a bust, it's like, you told us we were going to be... I went and bought a generator. Why did I do that?
Exactly. I bought 4 generators. I still really buy into the Curb Your Enthusiasm idea that they're just predicting what they want so they can play golf the next day and nobody else will because they'll all cancel because they think what rain is coming, and then they can get all the tee times. That makes sense to me.
Very good. I'm just picturing the weather on Graham's TV. It's like, it's grey, it's going to rain, you'll get sunlight for an hour. Have a good day.
Pretty much. I mean, my mum and dad, I don't know if it's a generational thing. They check the weather like hourly, and I cannot remember the last time I checked my weather app on my phone. It's just always the same. Doesn't matter the season.
Oh.
So we don't have what was it, Brad or Jim Duncan. Just, we don't pay attention to the weather.
Sorry to hear it. Sorry to hear it, Graham. All right, let's get into the Premier League action for the weekend. We should start in North London, where Man United got another huge win. A 3-2 win over Arsenal, league leaders Arsenal, no less. Sensational for the rejuvenated Man United. Matheus Cunha, as noted, with the brilliant winner in the 87th minute. Arsenal's first home loss of the season. The win, Taylor, putting Man United in the top 4, which is a place they will surely stay if the Carrick revolution continues at the pace he has set.
That's right. It's going to. They're going to win every single game. They're never going to look back. They figured it out, guys. They cracked the code. Or something like that. I am truly very surprised by this result. The City one, maybe you can explain away as a derby. Maybe City just kind of overlooked their opposition or thought Manchester United would roll over. This one was much more of a surprise to me. And it is still the case that you're playing a team that is going to have more of the ball, that is going to have more of the opportunities. So in some ways, you are a little bit more free to be defensive and reactive, and I think that works to their advantage, Manchester United. Still remains to be seen what they will do against a team that they are, like, quote-unquote, theoretically better than or expected to beat. But this result, I think, is pretty sizable. I don't know if it moves the needle much on Michael Carrick, like, not being the interim manager or being more than the interim manager, and I personally don't think it should. But you have to say that they looked a lot more confident and just a lot more fun to watch, I think, than they have been in quite some time.
Yeah, I thought this game in general was fun. Like, really good entertainment. Proper Barclays, where the game swung back and forth, and there were great goals, and there was proper narrative, and there were moments that made me make a noise in my office as I was watching this game. And obviously,
What noise?
Just a shriek, Ryan. Do you want me to do it?
Yes.
Or am I saving that for the Patreon? Just as the Matheus Cunha goal went in towards the end. But that's going to be clipped.
Very
up
Gary
and done
Neville
in
of you.
Discord. Yeah.
Wow.
There's narrative on both sides, right? Taylor kind of touched upon the Manchester United narrative there. For Arsenal, and I kind of feel like that's where the more compelling narrative is, because we're talking about a team that's going for the title here. To state the obvious, a hugely damaging result. They've taken 2 points from their last 9 games. I frankly don't know if this performance warranted a defeat, because 2 of the Manchester United goals are absolute bangers. I think if Arsenal played this way again, they probably beat most teams in the league. But I think the most damaging thing, besides the result, obviously, is you could sense the nervousness. There was a nervousness inside the stadium. There was nervousness among the players. Obviously, that's where the first Manchester United goal comes from. Like, Arsenal were in control at 1-0 up. They had been the better team until that moment. I thought they were playing well. And then that mistake for the first Manchester United goal, which comes from the Zubimendi pass, which you could see in real time unfolding, like as Zubimendi was drawing into a little bit of a corner. Manchester United were putting the 2-man press on. There had been little moments before then that had been warning signs of Manchester United getting in behind, so you could see it unfolding. And after that point, like, yeah, okay, Arsenal threatened from set pieces. Obviously, that's where they scored the equaliser. But it just felt like a game where there was something for Manchester United to gain from this match. So it wasn't a performance that said to me that Arsenal are going to win this thing with genuine conviction. I still think that Arsenal, are going to win the title. But I'm now of the opinion that's largely because I don't have faith in anyone else to really make the most of their slip-ups. And I think this was a performance that did show some of the limitations of this Arsenal team.
Yeah, Joe, what was your thoughts on this game? Was it a case of Arsenal below par and Man United above par, or was there more nuance to that than that?
I think it's both of those things at the same time, right? I mean, I didn't think Arsenal played a good game in this match. I saw Michael Cox wrote a piece about how they don't have a truly great attacker, and that may be a little bit harsh on Bukayo Saka, but in general, I think that's probably true, where this team doesn't have the attacking verve to really go out and punish opposing outfits. And Manchester United were probably a bit better than we've seen them be throughout a lot of this season, or at least they were a good team to make Arsenal suffer in this game, where they took advantage of mistakes. They were clearly set up, Manchester United, to play on the break for the second straight Premier League weekend, where you had Dorgu and Ahmad as the wingers. That is a crystal clear sign from Michael Carrick that, hey, we're going to play in transition, because you don't set those two guys up as wingers in a 4-2-3-1 or thereabouts if you actually want to break a team down with the ball. And so Manchester United's intentions were very clear from the start, and they put the impetus on Arsenal to beat them. And it looked like Arsenal had, as Graham already talked about, the ability to do that early on, and then they shoot themselves in the foot, and then a couple of bangers later, and they lose this game. I don't think this is the world is ending sort of result for Arsenal. It is more, for me, a reminder of what they've been all season long, where they can't be a team. They don't have the ability, it seems like, under Mikel Arteta and with this group of players, to be a team that truly imposes themselves on the opposition in open play possession sequences. Maybe if they get the striker deal in the summer right. We're talking about this a little bit different. But Gyökeres has not been an impact player, although he can join the line of Premier League strikers that joined this past summer that haven't really impacted the game. But they haven't hit on enough guys, or they're not set up, or maybe a mixture of both, most likely, to be a team that really imposes themselves. And when there's one mistake that goes against them, it's going to be tough sledding. And that's okay. Like this, as Graham said, they're probably still going to win the title, but this was not Arsenal at their best.
Yeah, I thought the lack of movement and I guess just like intention to press home the advantage when they were 1-0 up, I thought was quite striking. And that's the side of Arsenal that frustrates me. I've said my piece on this before. I think they're too often too quick to protect what they have rather than really go for it. And I struggle with that because I believe they've got more in attack. Like Eberechi Eze is the prime example of this. I think there is a question over some members of the personnel within the Arsenal squad, like Gyökeres. I am unsure whether he is up to the standard, frankly, to be the starting centre-forward for Arsenal. Eberechi Eze, however, is a player who comes into this Arsenal team, and I think he's going to be someone who moves the needle for them in a meaningful way. I do think he's up to the standard for a team like Arsenal. And there were moments in his first few months as an Arsenal player where he did that. I think of the North London derby against Spurs where he gets a hat-trick and we think, okay, Arsenal have found their player who's going to make a difference in games like this. Since that game, Eberechi Eze has done basically nothing for Arsenal and seems to be, and I can't fully explain it, maybe a more nuanced tactical or sharper tactical eye than me would be able to figure it out. But he just seems limited within this Arsenal team. Maybe doesn't have the freedom that he's used to, and so he's involved in this game and basically does really nothing when Arsenal are looking to him to create something out of nothing. Arsenal are 17th in the Premier League this season for percentage of open play goals, meaning of the total goals they've scored this season, they're ranked 17th in the table for those goals coming from open play. I think that's a wild fact. And it just says to me that they're still lacking that extra bit of creativity. And I think that's always going to be the question about this Arsenal team. And the flip side of that is obviously they're so effective from set pieces. But to have a team that's going to win the title and be 17th for that metric seems pretty ridiculous, frankly.
I hope this question makes sense. But is it that they're lacking that talent, they're lacking that difference maker, or they don't seek to have a difference maker? Because that's what I saw a lot of in this game, was it felt like they were waiting for the patterns to develop or for players to be in the right spot for the kind of pattern sequence to begin. And so there's just a lot of pausing on the ball and looking around and kind of gesturing like, no, you're supposed to be here. Now I can play that ball. And it didn't seem to me that any one player had the kind of motivation or empowerment to make a difference, to be the one to kind of go at defenses and make them drop off and make them kind of drop that line of confrontation or create space for other players. It just felt like for Arsenal, they were looking to move the ball until like the sequence was right or until they could capitalize on a set piece. And they do. They get the equalizer back on that set piece. And for a moment, it feels like, here we go. They've got to grind their way in. They're going to get this goal. Then they're going to kind of keep pushing and build the momentum from there. And that's what I was shocked by, was that seconds later, the ball's in the back of the net, but it's going the other way. And it felt for all the world like that could have been the turning point for Arsenal. And they kind of stayed reactive and unsteady. And that's where I'm still confused by this team. I don't think they win the title. And that's not meant to be a shot at them or Arteta, because I think I really enjoyed Arteta in this game. I really enjoyed his post-match thoughts. I felt like he gave as clear of an answer as to what went wrong as you can without really blaming anybody, including the supporters. But he spoke about the nervousness. He spoke about the lack of creativity and the lack of kind of difference-making on the day. And put a lot of that down to, we weren't at our best, we'll be back to our best. It's the way it goes. Once you allow those little cracks to open, you allow the other team to kind of gain momentum and exploit them. And I think that's all fair. it felt for me like another moment in which Arsenal kind of failed to put their foot on the gas, failed to really take control of that game. And if you can't do that over and over again, I don't know how you end up taking control of the title race.
Ooh. So I've got to ask Taylor, who is winning the title then?
I mean, I agree with Graham. I think
Carrick's at the wheel. Just say it. Carrick is at the wheel.
That's it. That's going to do it. That's going to turn it all around. Chelsea. It's going to be Carrick or Chelsea, one or the other. No, I mean, I think Graham has a valid point that no one else really seems like they've figured things out to the point where they can truly press Arsenal and cause problems. It's why I just default to Manchester City, because we've seen them do this before. My youngest daughter is now in the driver's seat and honking the horn.
Ready for the road.
Good cleaning.
My wife is
I'm walking
frantically sprinting towards the car. She apparently is an Arsenal supporter and does not agree with my take.
That was awesome.
I still feel like City, even with their erratic form, even with the loss in the derby and the loss to Bodo Glimt, they're just still City, and they have that capability to spring off 10 results in a row and just grind their way towards the top. And Arsenal, I think, I guess I'm just kind of not convinced until I'm convinced. And maybe I should be at this point. It sounds like Graham and Joe very much are. But I just still think there is a vulnerability in there that this result kind of laid bare.
Definitely.
And I agree with that part, Taylor. And I think in the way that this game went, there's definitely some scar tissue from past title races that have slipped through their fingers. Like you could sense that in this game. Just to repeat my point, though, that I made at the start of this segment, I just don't have faith in anyone else to capitalise on that. Like Man City, if we were talking a month ago, when it seemed like something clicked for Manchester City and they had real momentum, then maybe my opinion would be different. Man City beat Wolves, spoiler alert for later in this episode. They beat Wolves on Saturday. That was their first league win in 5. So it's not like they're in better form. And so I think whoever wins this title, and I think it is likely to be Arsenal,
Leicester,
is going to, they've got to win promotion and then climb the Premier League table in the one season. But I know, why am I not a believer? But yeah, I think whoever wins it is going to stumble over the line. Watching this Arsenal team, it kind of hit me. There's some parallels between them and, for me anyway, Southgate's England. Where when they have a talent advantage, there's enough there for them to get the job done, to be better than those teams. When the onus is on them against stronger caliber opponents to really impose their game, that seems to be where they fall short.
Yep.
So
100% agree with that. It's like less awful to watch than Southgate. Like Southgate's England was the extreme. It's an extreme version of this, but it's true, Graham. Like that is the problem for Arsenal. Now, at the same time, I want to make sure we don't over-index one result where 2 bangers break Arsenal, right? I mean, I do think most of the time Arsenal win this game, and I recognize that in the Premier League title race, which is still headed Arsenal's direction, that margins do matter a lot, and that this could be a hugely impactful result there. I just still think at the end of the day, this has been a problem for Arsenal. It will continue to be one, it looks like, under Mikel Arteta, barring some evolution that's probably not destined to happen until this summer at the earliest. And they're probably still going to win it all because they've dealt with this problem forever under Arteta and have developed into a really good team along the way. I think things are probably going to be okay, but I also want to give credit to Man United. I didn't think we were going to spend this much time talking about Arsenal, but I'm glad that we did because I think it's an interesting discussion. I think Man United looked like a reasonable soccer team, and maybe they weren't as bad as we thought all along, or they just needed somebody to put players in positions that made a little bit more sense. I think we talked about when the transition happened, they were 4th in expected goal differential. Now this team looks like they're at least capable of hanging in some of these games. They won't get 2 bangers from range every Saturday, every Sunday, but this team looks competent again, which is nice.
And I think I'm correct in saying the best form of any team in the top half of the table, Manchester United, which is insane to think about. That feels very wrong. But this did feel like a team that had the shackles off. It felt very similar to Ole when he takes over after Jose, that you could see just a bit more spark, a bit more fight, a bit more belief in this team. At the same time, there is a bit more of, I think, collective buy-in. Matheus Cunha is a prime exemplifier of that he doesn't start either of Carrick's first 2 games in charge because, as Joe laid out, you're putting Dorgo in there to do the defensive work in that sort of 4-2-3-1, at least on paper. You need him to do more of the defensive, like stabilizing, but you bring Cunha in to have an impact, and he's had an impact in the last 2 games and seems completely dialed into that role. My guess is that against perceived weaker opposition, he starts, but there is a level of kind of commitment and connectivity to this Manchester United team that we haven't seen in a very long time. It was truly the most fun, speaking purely as a fan at this point. It was the most fun I've had watching this team in as long as I can remember, because even the FA Cup win, it still felt like, is this the guy? Are they making progress? It feels maybe fluky, more so than there's a method here. And this was just enjoyable, and you could see that the players were enjoying themselves and were bought in and were kind of up for it, and that's just not a thing we've seen from Manchester United for most of this season.
I mean, the vibes are certainly better now than they were under Amrin. The other thing that I think is better, and look, it's 2 games, and Manchester United they've got a run of games coming up against teams where the tactical matchup's going to be entirely different. I think they've got like Fulham this weekend.
They're going to lose to Fulham. Yep.
Fulham, and then I think West Ham in a couple of weeks. So I'm reserving any kind of frankly, I'm reserving any conclusions till the end of the season, but I think we'll know more after those matches. But there's still things like, Man United scored a couple bangers in this game. Patrick Dorgu, by the way, completely transformed into prime Gareth Bale in the last few matches that he's played. But there were some things beyond that I thought were impressive, like the little quick little passes between midfielders and attacker, like we saw before the Dorgu banner. In fact, both bangers. There's a little sequence before then that gets Manchester United into a good area. The other thing which is linked, I guess, is the overloads in the middle, where Carrick is having the fullbacks stay wide and then the wingers push into the middle. This is not overly complicated stuff, but it's just meaning that Manchester United have there's been more connective tissue in these 2 games that they've played against City and Arsenal than I think there ever was under Ruben Amorim. Even in similar matches, and players like Casemiro, I think, are illustrative of that. Where Casemiro's played 2 excellent games, where previously he looked like he was having to cover the entire or half a pitch on his own. Kobe Mainoo has run more than any other player on the pitch in his last 2 games. That's a guy who was on the bench for Manchester United when they desperately needed. I'll never understand that from Ruben Amorim. I'm not saying that Kobe Mainoo is the fix-all solution, but he clearly helps the balance of this Manchester United midfield. So, yes, maybe on another day Manchester United don't win this game, but again, there was impressive stuff from them.
I really need, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I need the tell-all book about Ruben Amorim's time in charge. Because I look at somebody like Casemiro, Graham, I totally agree with you. And in this game, you can see the moments when he is the Casemiro that they brought in from Real Madrid. What I remember from him from Madrid was how good he was at kind of filling the hole between defense and midfield, but being very good at reading the game within that space. And so sometimes that would then mean stepping 10 yards to apply pressure and force the ball backwards. Sometimes that was closing 5 yards to intercept a pass. But he was always kind of in the right position to make those plays, but then facilitate possession. And I think he was asked to do so much more under Amorim and simultaneously asked to do less in ways that I think suit his game. And I think the same was true of Kobe Mainoo, that you could just see them not really playing their natural way. You could see the wheels turning when they're trying to process what they're supposed to do next. And it makes me think that Amorim was asking, similar to Louis van Gaal, where it was all everybody has to take one extra touch in the box. You can't shoot first time. There were specific instructions about when to pass, when to shoot, where you needed to be in relation to a shot. And I think all of that, when it can click and work really well, I guess makes you a seamless attacking machine. But if you don't have it all click, then you get what Manchester United looked like under Ruben Amorim. And by contrast, they just look so much more confident, and a lot of that is putting players in the right positions and then asking them to play the way they're comfortable. But I think some of that is also just empowering them. It seems like Carrick is striking that line of discipline and tactics, but then also individual player motivation. And I think that seems to be making the difference so far.
Can't wait for Carrick out in 2 months.
I mean, I think it's worth, because people have already, there was lots of jokes in different group chats this weekend about, Carrick at the wheel, Carrick taking over, Carrick better than Sir Alex Ferguson. The last one, maybe, we'll see. But largely what I would say is to remind people that, Ole, when he takes over from Jose Mourinho, he has 13 league games in charge, 10 wins, 3 draws. There's also the win over PSG, and then they made him permanent. And then it's 2 wins from their next 10, and the wheels come off. And I think there is just always maybe we are free from the past manager that we did not enjoy. We're kind of all having a good time. We're remembering why this is fun. And I think sometimes when you then make the interim person the permanent manager, suddenly that freedom is limited again, and there's more pressure and there's more sort of instruction than there was previously. So I would caution patience. I would encourage patience for Manchester United. I doubt they're going to be listening or doing anything that we say, but I really enjoyed these two performances. I'm still happy for them to do a detailed managerial pursuit in the summer.
Well, there you go. But if I were you, Taylor, I'd be feeling fairly bullish about the run of games which we've noted. Fulham up next. If you can stop Harry Wilson scoring some bangers there, and Ricardo Pepi wearing his cast from doing the same,
they're going to lose to Fulham.
Yeah. Well, there's that one. But after that, it's Dr. Tottenham at home. Then it's going to West Ham. Then Everton. Then Palace. Then Newcastle. That takes you through to early March. That's a good run.
I mean, yeah, but those are the
agree.
games for Manchester United. There was a tweet from, I can't remember who it was. It was a Manchester United someone who covers Manchester United as a journalist. They tweeted after the game yesterday, if Manchester United had just won those games that they drew against and then rung off about 7 games, they'd be top of the Premier League table. Yep, that's how football works.
And numbers.
So, yeah, I think that's the right place to be, cautious optimism. I do think the other side of that is because of the Solskjaer thing. Some people are overcorrecting, where Roy Keane after this game says, in no circumstance should they give Michael Carrick the job. Well, I mean, there is a circumstance where they should give Michael Carrick the job. We're just a long way from that after 2 games.
Yeah, I think it's you maybe let him be part of the interview process and you're more into him potentially, but I think you definitely don't be overly reactionary and then assume that it fixes everything. I think it's a club that really likes to have former players and class of 92 people involved in decision making, and I'm not sure that has worked out the best for them in the long run.
Brooklyn Beckham next. That's what I say. Really stir things up. Good stuff.
That would do it.
Yeah, he's had a lot of different careers. He's great at a lot of things. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, more Premier League for you. We've got lots from the continent to come as well. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to the weekend review. Why don't we go down to the South Coast where Bournemouth pulled off a 3-2 win over Liverpool. I think, Graham, I was calling this my match of the weekend before the Arsenal game. I still might call it that. We had a stoppage time winner for Bournemouth to end Liverpool's 13-match unbeaten run here. Bournemouth were 2-0 up after just over half hour as well. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, I mean, we were really quite glowing about Liverpool in the Champions League after their win against Marseille, right? And we talked about the balance of their setup and how comfortable they found that match, and then this match happens just a few days later, and right there, I mean, the setup was largely the same, a couple personnel changes, I think, in there. Ekitike didn't start. But right there is the stark difference the contrast between the Premier League and the Champions League for teams like Liverpool. And you could say this about Spurs and Newcastle as well, who are doing better in Europe than they are in the league. But it just feels like the teams that a lot of the Premier League sides are facing in Europe, they're used to winning in their own domestic leagues, and so they're just more likely to come out and try and impose their own game. I think of Dortmund, even after they go down to 10 men against Spurs, still tried at least to play their own game. Whereas the lower half Premier League teams, they ask opponents like Liverpool every single week to break them down, and then they have real quality on the break. They've got the budgets to have top-end talent to play that way, and it's becoming a bit of a conundrum for a number of big Premier League teams. We've just spoken about Arsenal struggling in open play in scenarios like this, and I thought it was similar for Liverpool. I thought this was Liverpool being back to the team they were last season, where a lack of pressure on the ball in the centre of the pitch, defensively ragged, Van Dijk was, I guess, at fault for the first goal where there's just no conviction in his clearance. It's him who's kind of holding the line a little bit too deep for the second goal as well, although I have a little bit more sympathy with that sort of situation. But yeah, it's just a really bad mix for Liverpool, and Bournemouth were ready to pounce.
Yeah, Graham talked about Liverpool and their struggles creating chances in this game, which was a real thing. It looked like in that 4-2-2-2 structure, the same one, as Graham said, that it looked like we saw against Marseille. It's not totally new for Arne Slot. It looked like the players had a clear grasp of how to access the final third, moving through Florian Wirtz and Szoboszlai through the middle as that really the front two, I suppose, those two players sort of were in this structure. They accessed those players through the lines a lot in this game and made it to the final third, but then the last pass just wasn't there. And I don't know if that's a chemistry thing. I don't know if that's a tactical thing. I don't know if it was just an execution thing on the day that didn't click, but the final action was clearly missing for Liverpool in this game. And then on the other side, Graham, you talked about the individual mistakes from Virgil van Dijk. I think it was even broader than that as far as Liverpool's defensive struggles. I mean, the back-breaking game loser that they concede off of a long throw is just heart-wrenching if you're a Liverpool fan. But even before that, both of the first two Bournemouth goals had a very similar theme to them. And you might think, okay, Liverpool versus Bournemouth, we know how Bournemouth want to play. Those are both going to be counter-attacking goals where they catch Liverpool high and race them behind. That wasn't the case at all for either one of those goals. Both of those goals for Bournemouth came from them having Liverpool back deep inside their own half. And Graham, you said it. It was Liverpool's inability to apply pressure in the center of the field. And in this case, it wasn't like with their midfield two of Gravenberch and McAllister. It was Wirtz and Szoboszlai. And the front line then as a broader entity with Gakpo and Salah. They couldn't figure out how to pressure the Bournemouth center backs. And so on the first goal, it's Marco Senesi who plays the ball over the top, and then you get the Virgil van Dijk oopsie, and then Bournemouth score. And the second goal is James Hill, who plays the through ball in behind Kirkez and into Jimenez, and Jimenez finishes, and it's 2-0 Bournemouth. Both of those goals featured a center back for Bournemouth having so much space to pick out a pass in behind. That can't happen. Like, you either have to nail the defensive line in the back or you have to apply pressure in the front. And those things didn't happen for Liverpool in this game. It looked like they were just unclear of what the actual responsibilities were in their block, which is unacceptable, I suppose. Like, I mean, really, that's at the end of the day, the execution from Liverpool, both at an individual level and at a team level, was incredibly poor. Like, far below standard for a team with players of this quality. They have to look at themselves after a game like this. It was really bad. Maybe some of the worst I've seen from them all season.
And that extended to the fullbacks as well. I actually said there in my little spiel, it reminded me of Liverpool from last season. Not Liverpool from last season. I meant the first half of this season. It just feels longer ago than the first half of the season with a lack of pressure on the ball. But the fullbacks as well, like for the second goal, Kerkez and Frimpong are just like nowhere to be seen as Bournemouth flood the box. I think it's a 3-on-2 in that situation. And that goes back to the balance of the personnel that Liverpool brought in the summer. Like, Kerkez has potential. Frimpong in the right position I think is excellent, but what is the right position in this Liverpool system for Frimpong? And then Kerkez comes off, I think, at half-time. Sounded like this might have been Andy Robertson's last game for Liverpool. That was the reporting before this game. Then Kerkez has another really ragged and raw 45 minutes, and Liverpool apparently pull the plug on that deal. So that says something about the indecision of how they're constructing this squad and how that's manifesting itself in performances like this.
Yeah. Liverpool yet to win a Premier League game in the year of our Lord 2026. Wowzers. Newcastle 0, Aston Villa 2. Buendia and Watkins with the goals for Villa in this one. Buendia's goal was a lovely strike as well. This was, Graham, I'm sure you've seen lots of the reporting about this is the first win at St James's Park for Aston Villa since 2005. And that game against Newcastle in 2005 was the one where Lee Bowyer and Kieran Dyer, the Newcastle players, were sent off for fighting each other. It was that one. That was how long ago it was that Villa last won at this stadium. But they're 4 points off the top. They are title contenders, Graham.
I mean, yeah, they have to be taken seriously. I mean, Unai Emery continues to play down. He is pointing to the underlying statistics every single week in Unai Emery, and he's saying they're not even contenders to finish in the top 5, which I guess if you're going by those numbers, they're not. But guess what? Soccer's played on the pitch, and Villa were pretty good in this game. I thought the key to this match was the Villa front four, who really pinned Newcastle back. So it was Ollie Watkins, it was Morgan Rogers, and then it was Buendia and Jadon Sancho, who's come into this Villa team and has been really useful with tucking inside from the wing. There we go. It's the Carrick effect. But yeah, having those four players central and being able to overload the middle just made it very difficult for Newcastle to pick up every single Villa attacker. And that then creates the space for, I mean, the Buendia goal is a banger, but he's got acres of space like 20 yards out from goal. And that's because Newcastle are pinned back in that shape, and they never got to grips with that in the whole game. In terms of Newcastle's performance, they were just really flat, which was unusual for a big game at St James's Park. I don't know if the Champions League took it out of them. Aston Villa played in Europe during the week, on a day later as well, on Thursday. But just couldn't lift themselves for this game. They said on the broadcast, and I didn't know this until now, that Newcastle have never won a league game that Bruno Guimaraes has not played in since he joined. He joined nearly 4 years ago, so he was out injured for this game, and I thought without having him in the midfield unit, they just didn't have a huge amount of control, and so they tried to kind of like run over the top of Villa, but Villa were pretty comfortable playing against that. So whatever it was, Newcastle just weren't able to match Villa, and yeah, they have to be taken seriously as title contenders. We're heading into February now, and they're only 4 points off the top. Is this like a Leicester? Is this like a under the radar Leicester City story that we're watching? I don't know, but they're a fun team to watch.
There's familiar symptoms, right? Because it's not like, I mean, I guess you all are kind of consensus that Arsenal are the favorites, but even there, I think there's reasons to be like, I don't know. We have questions about them. Liverpool, City, the same. Maybe it is we just keep expecting someone to catch them and Villa end up doing it. I'm excited for Unai Emery to get even more blunt in why he thinks they won't win, and at some point just point directly at Matty Cash and be like, because that's still here. That's why. But so far it's still working. So far they're still getting the results, so credit to them.
Credit to them, indeed. Manchester City in second place after their 2-0 win over Wolves. Joseph, Marmoush and Semenyo with the goals in that one. Did you enjoy this one, Joe?
I did. I mean, it was not like the game of the weekend of the Premier League by any means, but I thought it was an interesting game for City in particular. Wolves losing is sadly routine at this stage. City's win, I think, got referenced earlier. Their streak of 4 Premier League games without a win is now over. This had rotation from Pep. Ryan, you mentioned Marmoush there. He was in for Haaland, sort of, but also sort of not really. We talked about Liverpool's 4-2-2. This was City in a 4-2-2 for a lot of this game, where you had Cherki and Reinders sort of as the highest line of 2, with Semenyo and Marmoush then as the widest line of 2, and then Rodri and Bernardo as the deepest line of 2. So you had a lot of different profiles in that shape, and I think it served City fairly well in this game. They didn't create a glut of chances by any means, but they were good enough and in control of this game to get the job done. And part of their being in control was Marc Guehi making his debut for Manchester City. He started in place of sweet, poor Max Alleyne. Maybe later on he'll get a new nickname when he becomes a regular player. But for now, he's sweet, poor Max Alleyne. Dream opponent, as far as I'm concerned, to bet in against if you're Marc Guehi. But he looked good. He was playing as a left center back. He was composed on the ball. One thing I'm excited to see against higher level opposition is Guehi occasionally stepping into midfield, because I think he has that skill set to maybe kind of do a John Stones a little bit as he breaks into the lines. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of Marc Guehi in a Manchester City shirt, and this was a perfectly fine beginning for both parties.
Excellent stuff. One more Premier League game to touch on this feed. Burnley 2, Tottenham 2. Christian Romero rescuing a point, Graham, for Spurs late on in this one. Was that a big sigh I just heard you exclaim there before we talk about Spurs here?
Yeah. Oh, Spurs. Yeah. After that win over Dortmund, which we all thought, I mean, did anyone truly think it? But we all thought that might be the turning point for Tottenham under Thomas Frank. This was Spurs crashing back down to earth again, because they have won just 2 of their last 14 Premier League games. That obviously can't continue. They've got bigger problems than the manager, but I do really fear for Thomas Frank at this point. I kind of think it's only a matter of time. And in the end, this was a point that didn't really suit either team, because for Burnley, a respectable result, but they need wins to climb out of trouble. And then for Spurs, this doesn't really change the landscape for them either. And they were somewhat unfortunate, Spurs, because on another day they might have won it. Xavi Simons has a shot off the bar in the second half. Martin Dubravka, the Burnley goalkeeper, also made a number of big saves. But the fact of the matter is that Spurs needed a late goal from a centre-back after their first goal was also scored by a centre-back, Mickey van de Ven, who has 7 goals this season. And that in itself just highlights how difficult it has been for Spurs to kind of create any sort of momentum in the attacking third from any of their of their forward players. Like Dominic Solanke, I think, makes a bit of a difference, but Solanke, with the exception of that one season at Bournemouth, has never really been like a consistent goal scorer. I think of, and I like Dominic Solanke, but I think of him as a focal point who brings others into the attack and gets you up the field. And Spurs kind of need someone to do something on their own, like a Morgan Rogers or an Emi Buendia or a Mateus Cunha, and they just don't have that player at the moment. So yeah, this was a result that put Spurs back in the dark place for another week.
Oh dear, oh dear. Well, there were wins for West Ham, for Fulham, for Chelsea and for Forest. We will touch on those in Weekend Review Extra, but right now we take a quick pause. When we come back, we're going to go to Spain, Italy and Germany. Join us then. Total Soccer Show, welcome back to the Weekend Review. Let's take ourselves to the Liga, where the top 2 teams both got wins. Real Madrid got one at Villarreal. Kylian Mbappe with the second half brace in this one, Graham. One of his goals, a Panenka, which he did on the same field as Brahim Diaz, and sort of inferred it was that was for you. That's how you do it.
It's a direct quote. He said for him after the game, which is like, I'm sorry, are you mocking Brahim Diaz? Like, he did not look, I don't know if you saw this game, Ryan, but after this goal, he didn't look very happy about it. Like, he still had that sort of haunted look from the dying moments of the AFCON finals. So, yeah, bizarre. Like, great fun for a neutral, but I don't know if you're Brahim Diaz, that's exactly what you want in your first game back.
Can you imagine if Mbappe attempted that and he missed it? What would be the narrative there? Unbelievable.
Brahim Diaz celebrating like a Martin Keown on Van Nistelrooy on his head. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the performance, obviously an impressive result for Real Madrid, considering Villarreal are flying high in La Liga. the performance itself wasn't all that emphatic. But when Real Madrid are good, they seem to be able to reduce matches to being about the moments. And I'm not entirely sure how they do that. I've never been sure how they do that, but that's what they used to do under Ancelotti. It's what they used to do under Zidane. And there have been very tentative signs that Arbeloa's team are going down that same path. Now, it's been similar to the Carrick discussion. It's been 3 games. Actually, it's been 4 games. In the first one, they lost to lower league opposition in the Copa del Rey. But the first half was a sort of nothing first half. Not a lot happened. I guess you could sort of credit Real Madrid's defensive shape for that. Second half was a little bit more open, and that favoured Real Madrid in the attack. And the game was really decided in the moments when Mbappe and Vinicius got running at Villarreal defenders inside the box. One goal came from a Vinicius dribble out on the left side, and then the second goal to make it 2-0 in stoppage time. That penalty comes from an Mbappe dribble, and he's filled inside the box. So a moment's game for Real Madrid for sure, but that seems to be where they do their best work, and I can't fully explain it.
Yep. Barcelona remain 1 point ahead of Real Madrid after their 3-0 win over Oviedo, bottom of the league. Oviedo, Lamine Yamal with a nice overhead kick for one of the goals. Yeah.
That's a bit of an understatement. I think it's one of the goals of the season, like a scissor kick from just inside the box on the full volley. I think it's unreal to even think of shooting like that when you've just got so much work to do to find the far corner. And that was the flourish on this performance for Barcelona. It is rare. This was a bit of a non-contest. It's rare you see Barcelona control a game and just like win comfortably and keep a clean sheet and not really concede any opportunities. That's not really their brand. But Oviedo are the worst team in La Liga. So great story that they won promotion last season, but they just do not have the top end talent to compete really at this level. And Barcelona seemingly barely have a stadium. I don't know if anyone saw this on social media after this game. The media box and large sections of the stands. I guess it was raining heavily in Catalonia over the weekend. Just like a deluge of water pouring into parts of this stadium, which is very much still a building site. So yeah, maybe they should go back and look at that security certificate they got to play games at this stadium.
Yeah, I think they're just taking inspiration from Old Trafford, having a waterfall inside.
Right.
Is basically what it was. Yeah, it's
quite deliberate.
It's cultured. It's cultured of them to do. I'll say, in another part of my life, I have recently had to try and book a room at the Camp Nou for reasons I'll leave out there. And when I first contacted Barcelona, they were like, "Yeah, sure, we've got this room, this room, this room, this room. What would you like?" And then, like 2 weeks later, they were like, "We have no rooms," which for me was like. You promised you had rooms that weren't ready, didn't you?
They've all flooded.
You did.
They've all flooded.
Yeah, they're all flooded or they're not built yet. That's what I think happened there. No such nonsense happens in Germany, of course, but Bayern Munich suffered a 2-1 defeat to Augsburg in the Bavarian derby on Saturday. The league leaders' first Bundesliga loss of the season. They were unbeaten in 27 previous league matches, stretching back to last March. Taylor, goodness me, this is quite a shock result.
It really was. And in it, though, there are like kind of aspects that we've seen from Bayern so far this season, especially the game last week against Leipzig, which they end up turning around in dramatic fashion. But it was a similar performance from Bayern in that they have massive percentage of possession. They have, I think, slightly more shots, although Augsburg took a fair number themselves. But it felt like once they went up 1-0, this Bayern team, a slightly depleted Bayern team due to injuries and players just returning, it kind of felt like they thought, okay, that's it. We'll get a second one at some point. We're gonna kind of see this one out, no big deal. And Augsburg just kept fighting and kept kind of going pedal to the metal, trying to make something happen. And it felt like they sensed that there was an opportunity there, and Bayern just didn't have the fight back. And once it went to 1-1. I think there was also maybe a feeling of, okay, Augsburg will be content with it to finish in a draw. Now they're going to sit off. And I think in refusing to sit off, but instead really going for the jugular, I think they caught Bayern kind of unaware. Bayern really not helped by the fact that they only played with 10 men in this game because Harry Kane just decided, I'm good. And so I think he was there, but I'm not sure he actually played all that much. It was not his greatest performance of the season, nor was it Bayern's, but it probably was Augsburg getting a very needed 3 points and pushing them further from the bottom of the table.
And we'll let Harry Kane off the hook, given that he scored a bajillion goals for Bayern Munich basically every single time he's been on the field this season up to this point.
Unacceptable.
Yeah, this was just an off game. And I think part of that could be the fact that Leonard Carl's been getting a lot of minutes for Bayern recently and is just still not the finished product. As big a fan as I am of his game, he has a little bit to go in terms of the final ball and like actually feeling out the rhythm of games at this level. So I don't think he thrived in this game, maybe more so than Kane, although Kane missed chances. But that stuff happens, right? This was just not a great game for Bayern. They conceded on a set piece, which is not common for them. They conceded in open play, which is not common for them. And I agree, Taylor, with your general read of this game. It felt like Bayern were in control sort of until they weren't, and they never quite pressed the, all right, let's go out there and get this job done button. Yep. I am eager to see more of Jamal Musiala back in this team in terms of just seeing Bayern at their best, because I know I kind of referenced it way back in the intro. I was floored at this result. Like, this absolutely shocked me. I kind of thought that Bayern might go undefeated the entire Bundesliga season. And now that that's off the table, obviously it's off the table. But I think they have room to get even stronger this year, and I'm not worried about them at all.
Good stuff. There we go. All right, Borussia Dortmund with a 3-0 win at Union Berlin, by the way. We have a title race. 8 points the lead has been cut to now. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it was a good weekend in the Bundesliga because there were some other big results. Leverkusen getting back on track with a 1-0 win over Werder Bremen. Lucas Vazquez lives and scores his first goal of the season. I wanted to spotlight Ibrahim Maza, who was gone for a while playing at AFCON with Algeria, has been back, and has been such a key performer for this Leverkusen team, getting off good shots, threading the needle for good passes. He has been electric for them. Hoffenheim remain very, very strong thus far in the season. They beat a really woeful Eintracht side 3-1. Hoffenheim looking very stable. Frankfurt, by contrast, having sacked their manager. They've got an interim in charge. It is not Michael Carrick, so they did not win this game. They have yet to win a game in 2026. Hoffenheim were behind at the half, finished this one 3-1. So it's 3 goals in the second half. They make adjustments. They capitalize on set pieces. Borja, their leading attacker and goal creator, gets 2 assists in this one. He continues his excellent run of form. Hoffenheim look very, very strong. Hamburg and St. Pauli, neither of them looked that strong. Both of them looked okay with a point apiece. A 0-0 final in the Hamburg derby. Both teams at risk of the drop, both flirting with the relegation zone. St. Pauli very firmly in it, but both also looked pretty limited when it came to the attacking options. If you go and watch the highlights of this, it's one of those where you get the teams walking out. You get maybe 2 chances in the first half, and then you're going to smash cut to 87th minute and a third opportunity. Not a ton going on in this game.
Do like a smash cut, though. Thank you very much there.
Got to get it
Taylor. Real quick, before we finish up, we go to Serie A, where Juventus pulled off a 3-0 win over Napoli. Jonathan David, Kenan Yildiz, and a late strike from Filip Kostic, settling it for the Turin side. Who wants to talk about this? Graham, would you like to talk about this one?
Yeah, I watched this one on Sunday evening. A result that obviously has big implications for the Scudetto race, because I think it's done now for Napoli. They're now 9 points behind Inter at the top of the table. I think that's going to be too big a gap to bridge, especially when their injuries aren't really clearing anytime soon, and they've won just one of their last 5 league games. I thought this game really exposed a lot of the limitations they have at the moment, where they just can't control games in the middle, where they're missing De Bruyne, Anguissa and Billy Gilmore. That then means they're pulling McTominay back into the double pivot. That's then leaving them short of bodies in the attack. No David Neres as well at the moment, so that left them without a threat on the right side. Lukaku did come off the bench for the final 10 minutes, but he's a long way from full fitness. So even if Napoli did by some miracle get all their injured players back soon, I still think that gap is going to be too big. So in that sense, a really pivotal match. And then for Juventus, a performance that sort of shows how they are growing under Luciano Spalletti. I thought they were comprehensively the better team. I thought Yildiz was really good in that sort of free number 10 role that he has. He scored the second goal. And then the other player who stood out to me was Thuram, Kefren Thuram in central midfield. This is probably the best I've seen him play for Juventus, maybe the best I've ever seen him play. I didn't watch a huge amount of him when he was in Liga, and he was a real box-to-box presence through the centre of midfield. That's something he's always done relatively well, but he was quite precise with a lot of his playing forward and a lot of his possession play, and I thought he posed a goal threat as well. He has a shot that I think is either saved or comes off the post, like a curling shot to the right-footed shot to the far corner, and then he offered the he offered the defence a lot of protection. So I thought he was very good, and Juventus were the better team as well, as the scoreline suggests.
It is interesting in different ways. For Napoli, it's interesting. I agree with Graham. This feels like kind of like the nail in the coffin. But at a time when they do have players out with injury, players only just returning and needing kind of more depth, they have 2 players who were, it seems, suspended by Antonio Conte for comments made by their agent about a lack of playing time. Did make me wonder if maybe this is the start of the Conte cycle, where maybe the training and the intensity start to frustrate people, the lack of minutes start to frustrate people, and we have some dissent and some division. We'll see how that plays out from here. But for Juve, like I when you see the scoreline, which I did before I watched this game, I assumed it was Juve being comprehensively the better team. And certainly from a scoreline perspective, it was. I think they had the better of the chances. But it wasn't as though they kind of like completely killed this game off. I think Napoli had opportunities, and in a different day, Napoli get a goal, and then maybe they end up finishing this one 3-1 themselves. Like, I think they could have kind of turned things around, but Juve, to their credit, I think keep grinding, keep with the possession, keep kind of backing themselves to make something happen, and end up getting the 2 relatively late goals to see this one out and put themselves in much stronger position.
Indeed. And Inter still in a strong position, leading after they had a 6-2 win on Friday over Pisa. If you look up any goal from this one, listen, Federico Di Marco's goal, take a look at that one. I think Taylor mentioned last week on the feed sort of the threat he poses sort of crashing in from the wing. And it's like a half volley which he kind of hits into the ground, and it's an odd finish, but it's very cool as well. I don't think I've done it justice. But,
he meant it.
Yeah? You meant it? He meant it? You think so?
Of course. I mean, when it's him, yeah, of course.
Of course.
And any shot, he could hit it off of his own foot, and then like it could bounce in, and I would say he meant to do that.
Yeah. Well done. Well done to him and to Inter. Como, by the way, got a 6-0 win over Torino. That put them in 5th before Juventus played. They're in 6th now. They're on the cusp of European qualification, or Como, at this point. That's an interesting one to watch. And Roma with the 1-1 draw against Milan as well. So Milan are 5 points behind Inter after 22 games played, with Roma behind them in 3rd and Napoli in 4th. And I think, ladies and gents, that is the weekend reviewed. There will be more or extra weekend to review, if you will, on our Patreon feed, patreon.com/Total Soccer Show. Do join us then. But for now, Taylor Rockwell, thank you very much indeed for your contributions.
My pleasure, and thank you, my good man.
Muchas gracias, Joe Lowry.
De nada, senor. Gracias.
And thank you very much, Graham Ruthven.
Thank you, Ryan Bailey.
Thank you very much, listener, for joining us on this one. We'll be on the feed very shortly indeed. But for now, bye.